Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California, this is Success Sadhana. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today. Today's topic is the discomfort in, where suffering comes from and how to overcome it. With our speaker today, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We have 17 members on Zoom. Welcome, Vaish. Welcome back to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Thanks so much, Jay. I'm really glad to be back here and good to see everybody. Thanks for joining. We'll, as last week, start with a meditation and go into the subject matter today. See if anybody wants to actually check in or check out of the discomfort in. And hopefully we'll find some of the teachings of the ancient Vedas to be helpful in overcoming the main source of suffering, which is the mind. This is the premise given in the Bhagavad Gita, that suffering comes from the mind. But one, thankfully, can make the mind a friend. So we'll talk about that today too. But before we launch into any of this, it'd be nice to know if anybody's here the first time. And if you've just joined us, if somebody invited someone and you would like to introduce them, or if you just joined on your own, you can introduce yourself, right, JM?
Yes, I definitely would love to know if you're on first time. Please feel free to unmute yourself and say hi. Where are you dialing in from? Or you can type in the chat box too. But yeah, I would love to hear from you.
Yeah, also during the program today, I'll be taking what I call reflections. So just be aware of any of the material that you hear that sticks in your mind, or if you jot it down. It's nice if you can reflect it back at a certain point. You can do it at any time. You can just raise your hand, ask a question, or give a reflection of something you heard, or I'll stop at intervals and ask if anybody has anything. It really brings it to meaning this meeting to another level when everyone shares what they're experiencing and what they're hearing. It adds a really important dimension. So it's more of a conversation than me just giving a presentation. Does that sound okay to everybody? I'm testing it to see if I get any response. You can also use your emojis.
Yeah, my wife was telling in the morning, she does attempt to reflect when possible, because it helps her to synthesize her own thoughts, and that also helps her to, though those are some of the things she remembers later, kind of. So that's another benefit of just repeating what you heard.
Oh, yeah, that's very helpful. And others may resonate with what you say, and then it reminds them of important points that they might have missed also. So do you think there's anybody new that'd like to say hi?
So Nirja, she just said she's dialing in from Austin, Texas, used to attend San Jose back in 2010, 2013. Yeah, thanks,
Welcome
Nirja.
back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes, that is right. And thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, if you did join and you want to speak up later, you can. That is, join for the first time. So let's get started, Jam, because I have a way of using up most of the time just by talking. So let's start with a meditation. I'll take you on a guided tour. What I'd like to call today focused attention training. And this is a way to learn how to direct our attention, because where attention goes, energy flows. And number two, to become aware when your mind has wandered. Sometimes we don't even know. We might be on our way to do something pick up a piece of paper, we see something else, then we sit down and get absorbed to that. We forgot what we were going for in the first place. A lot of those kinds of detours happen by looking at a screen too. You go to one part and then you go to down a rabbit hole and you're gone. So first is learn how to strengthen your ability to direct your attention where you want it to go. Second is to become aware when your mind has wandered. It's very valuable. Has it wandered away from your goal? Do you even have a goal to start with? The third is to redirect your focus. Once you've noticed that it's wandered, do you have the strength to bring it back to your focus? And number 4 is to be aware of your awareness. That sounds like a tautology, but actually it's possible, according to the Yoga Sutras, to become aware of our own awareness. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that prajahati yada kaman sarvan partamanogatan atmanyeva atmana tushta stita pragnasta dochite. And that means that those who are able to withdraw from the mind's machinations and the ways it's drawing us out into the world and take pleasure in the self, become aware of your own self, actually can be happy. What he says, it's you can taste something that's very nice. So we're going to try that. And to help us become absorbed, I'm going to create a little sound vibration here from a tanpura. Tanpura is a stringed instrument that is famous for making a drone, and this will be in the key of C. So now, sit up a little straighter than you were a moment ago, and close your eyes and prepare to look inwardly. For a little while, release yourself from all your responsibilities. Bring your attention to your breath. Mentally say in on the inward breaths and out on your exhalations. Take each breath as the best gift that you have in this moment. You're now walking on a soft, golden brown pathway with a tangle of green trees and flowers on either side. At the end of the pathway is a yellow door. As you push the door open, you're greeted by an expanse of soothing light. The light envelops you, and you feel warm and safe. You've entered your inner world, the place in which you can taste the nectar of your own consciousness. Close the door to the outside world behind you and be fully present. Remain unattached from any thoughts. Observe them, but don't engage them. You are a dispassionate witness with no need or responsibility to react. Now take a deep breath but keep an alert mind and relax your feet. Relax your legs. Stay alert and relax your abdomen. Release the tension in your chest, your rib cage, your back, your shoulders, your neck, your head, and your face. And breathe with an alert mind. Feel positively that you exist. And now, together, let's observe one by one. Point your attention and observe your hands, your legs, your head, your hair. Notice that you are the one looking at them, but that they are not you. You are separate from all the things that you see. The seer and the seen are different. Now feel that you are not your body. See your thoughts and feel that you are not your thoughts. They're energy passing by. Now become aware of your power to hear, touch, to see, to taste, and to smell. Become aware of your body's power to grasp, to walk, to speak, and to digest. And try to marvel at these inexplicable powers given to you. Now become aware of your intelligence. Notice how your intelligence gives you directions, like those from an unseen expert who is always with you and available, even when you sleep. The ancient wisdom literatures call this benevolent guide the super self. Please remain in this state of witnesshood and listen to a text from the Bhagavad Gita. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all-pervading. Similarly, the spiritual essence situated in perfect vision does not mix with the body, though situated in the body. Know yourself to be a transcendental being and steady your mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence. And now that we're in a meditative state, And we can ride on this vibration of the tempura, the key of C. We'll do the mantra, one syllable, Om, behind muted mics. You can follow along with me. I'll take an inhale in a couple of seconds, and then I'll exhale with the syllable Om, which gathers all the spiritual energies in your heart region. Now bring your attention back to your breath and just reflect for a moment with your eyes closed that you are able to direct your attention. That's your free will. You can decide where to place your awareness at any given time. And whenever you do so, all your energies will follow, because where attention goes, energy flows. Also, remember the ways in which your mind wandered during the exercise. The mind wanders from here to there all day long, thousands of times an hour. We can become aware when it's wandering and not just be dragged. And reflect on the ways in which you redirected your focus. And finally, remember how you were able to become aware of your own consciousness. In essence, to be aware of your awareness. Take a couple more breaths. Release any tension you have left. You can rub your hands together, bring some external sensation, and open your eyes and come back into the room. Welcome back. Thanks everyone for going on that journey. And let's talk a little bit about the nature of the world and our relationship with it. Yes, JM, did you have a point?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can read minds. I was just going to say that Brittany Staples, she checked in from Facebook. I think she says, first time watching live. I met Vaish in Toronto last year doing book distribution.
Brittany, thank you. Good to be reconnected. Fantastic. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Now everyone remembers you can reflect at any time, ask questions at any time. And I'll show a few slides now that we're just coming out of this meditation. We can go into a little bit of philosophical mode, and follow the ideas that I've extracted from the wisdom literatures. You might as well show the first slide, because I was driving once with a friend down the freeway in San Diego, and then I saw the Comfort Inn, and I was thinking, of course, they'll call it the Comfort Inn. no one's going to call the discomfort in, or nobody would check in there. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about how the world we live in is made of matter, and we're categorically different from matter. So there's always some inconvenience and discomfort here. So if there was a big sign on the world, that would be it, discomfort in. So we'll talk a little bit about how the yogis overcome that discomfort, which the Bhagavad Gita says arises within the mind. And Rajesh had his hand up. Would you like to make a comment, reflection?
Yes, it's so amazing to witness that we have this power to redirect our energy as we were going through the exercise in the morning. I was wondering, like, if we are conscious about all the time, then we will have less miseries or less worries or less unwanted, mind, which we, as you mentioned in the morning, that suffering comes from the mind. So I was thinking this is so powerful just to witness that even for the short period of time. So just thank you for that.
Yeah, it's invaluable. If we start the day with even the minutest realization that I'm not my body, and I'm able to observe how the mind is working, and there's a way that the body's going on in a mechanical way. And even the mind, it has its own algorithms that we can look at and notice. That slight bit of perspective gives us the ability to move about the world in a much more enlightened way. It's really a balm that we put on our mind and soul. So when we move about in the world, we're able to do it in such a way that we're not overreacting to everything, because we're not so tightly connected to the mind and the way it's reacting to its environment. Such a nice reflection. Thank you very much, Rajesh. Okay. Yeah, let's see. This word suffering actually has a root, which means to carry. And the mind stores up experiences. When we talk about suffering, we're talking about revisiting those. I talked a few weeks ago about resentment. The word actually means resent. Whatever the impressions we've gained, they're resent, either pleasurable or unpleasurable. It's there within the mind. The impression is there. For instance, if you smell something like some kind of scent that you had come in contact with, let's say when you were in high school or something, and you can be transported to that very place where you were standing, somebody walked by you, or you were having a conversation, and you detected the scent of some kind of cologne, and then you remember where the sun was. And these are called samskars, or latent impressions that go within the subconscious mind. And we carry these around. And very interestingly to me, they're, according to the wisdom literatures, not just from this life, but also from previous lives. We carry the mind stuff with us from one gross material body to the next. There's a lot to be said about that, but the point here is that we may notice, as we just did through our meditation, that there's a lot more going on in the inside than we might normally be aware of. And we're definitely carrying around these impressions, and they can be triggered at any time. Nice picture, Jan. Okay, so has anybody ever advised you like this? Don't believe everything your mind tells you. In fact, there's a famous way in which when you perceive something happening to you in this world, it may be true or not true. For instance, have you ever been walking in a garden somewhere and you jumped because you thought maybe a spider landed on your shoulder? And then when you swiped at it, you realized it was a leaf that looked like a spider. And your friend might say, what happened? Oh, this spider jumped on my shoulder, but it's actually a leaf. So what happens in this mind-body loop is when I react to something that I perceive in the world, my body also changes. And then the mind sees that the body changes. That is, the heart rate might go up in a certain circumstance, perspiration might come to my brow. And then the mind says, oh, it must be true because look how the body's reacting. And then it amplifies, or there's a spiral that takes us deeper into this anxiety because obviously it's true. The body's reacting. It's what I thought it was. So the Bhagavad Gita, the other wisdom literatures say, don't believe everything your mind tells you. Look at it for yourself. Make sure that your mind is reporting to you accurately. Yeah, it's like sometimes, remember when I was in kindergarten, I had a friend named Denny, and he used to tell me all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'd take it home to my parents and they'd say, do you believe everything that Denny tells you? And I had to learn, like, Denny wasn't the authority on the world. So our mind isn't also the authority. Don't believe everything it tells us. In fact, we pick up various misunderstandings from here, there, and everywhere, and then we carry them around. So this is one of the ways in which we can become free, is to develop some perspectives. Like, is that true, what my mind is telling me? Okay. Now, this is just an alert. I'm going to be asking for reflections in a couple of minutes. So just get ready to reflect back. Anything you heard? Srimad Bhagavatam, this is a quintessential yoga literature, which talks about the philosophy of yoga. And here it says, all the senses have been under the control of the mind since time immemorial, and the mind himself never comes under the sway of any other. He, the mind, is stronger than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. Therefore, anyone who can bring the mind under control becomes the master of all the senses. Always appreciated that, to have an awareness how much influence the mind has over me in any given time. Especially this phrase, godlike power. So this is an awareness that some people never consider, or a fact that people don't consider because I simply go along with whatever my mind says. And in a poem that I read a long time ago, there was a consideration by the poet to say, how long have I been following the bad master of my mind and senses? It never gave me time off. It never gave me any concession. And I simply blindly followed it. Then he says, no more, that's it. Now I'm going to take my information from a higher source and not just believe everything my mind says, not blindly follow. Okay? It's like a movie. Everyone's had this experience, perhaps. I don't know if movie theaters are popular anymore. They were when I was a kid. You could walk in and then sit down, and then the screen would open. First, you're in the movie theater and getting used to the environment and which seat am I going to sit in? And then the lights go down, the curtain opens, and the feature film starts. And now I'm no longer in the room. I'm absorbed in the movie. And there's a hero, a heroine, they meet. We become attached to their relationship, and then perhaps one of them becomes ill, has cancer. We become drawn away or carried away by the emotion of it. Maybe even during the film, there's tears. I remember as a kid, there was a film called Born Free. It was about some lions that were born in the wild and somehow they came into captivity and then they were released later. And I don't remember all the details, but I do remember as a kid becoming really emotional about the lions and how they were released back into the wild. Then the light comes on and I realize, oh, I'm not in Africa. I'm sitting here in California and I'm in a movie theater and there's some gum stuck to my shoe. So this is a description of the experience that we have in the world. We get carried away by the movie that's shown on the screen of our minds. So the mind is described as a screen. And we're not actually experiencing the world directly. We're experiencing it as it's reflected on the screen of our mind. There are objects of the senses externally, and then we take them in through these various openings in our body. We hear things, the vibration goes through a nerve, and then it's interpreted by the mind. The mind becomes the interpreter of the information that's coming in from the outside world. So my experiences actually are taking place in that theater of the mind. And when we become aware of that, like the way to ruin a movie and your absorption in is, at least in the old days, you could just turn around and look up to see where the cameras were, the movie projector, I should say, and it's projecting light. And then you can really psych yourself out and say, oh yeah, the light's coming out of that hole right there, and it's just going on the screen. That's a screen. That's not real. And so there's a way in which the yogis, they do that. Meditators, they objectify everything and say, look, see, and we just did that ourselves, right? At the very beginning, we were watching. This is the observation of our physical body, the subtlety of the mind and so forth. We'd step back a couple inches and look and see, oh yeah, it's going on without me. I'm just watching it. So we can become carried away by the movie of our lives. We are already something, but we interpret who we are according to our external surroundings and our life situation that's going on around us. Okay, JM, I gave an alert, so now it's time for reflections. You have to pay a little tax. Okay.
Subhadra, please. And then Mariam.
First, or the second slide, when you were saying suffering means to carry, and you were talking about how the mind, I think you were saying, is carrying memories. It reminded me of the word remind, and that I never thought of it before, but you're just bringing up what you're carrying.
Such an important exercise she just took us through, because oftentimes we take for granted when we say things like memory, memorize, remind, what's actually happening. And we're recollecting those impressions that we've already had and then reacting to them again. Different kinds of the combinations and permutations of experiences. Thank you, Subhadra. Great. And Miriam.
Hey, always nice to be here. I really appreciate this moment. I just wanted to tell you how happy I am. It's 12 p.m. on Friday.
Yay.
Yeah, so that's one thing. The second thing is you had something in the slide that said the mastering the mind, like how to master the mind. I was thinking how I can master the mind, and maybe I can share something. And I felt like a lot to do with emotions. If I master my emotions and don't let the emotion carry me away, then my mind gets more quiet. And at that moment, when my mind gets quiet, and if I can stay for a little bit longer on that moment, I would see my body start to talk, start to telling me something. And then I can observe, heart, and sometimes hand, and the feet when walk through something, and the wind. It's so rewarding that when mind gets so quiet, then at that moment, I can see exactly what the life is. What the life is when the mind is not there. It's just like the moment, like all your hands and your heart suddenly go faster, and something happening, and then go down. And it's just like your hand like starting to do something by suddenly say, wow, that's very interesting. I just want to share that. And I don't know if it's related to mastering mind, but this is all my observation.
Thank you. Very helpful. And the way you began by mentioning emotions, a friend of mine who worked professionally in conflict resolution and retired now, but he told me that there's an inverse relationship between emotion and rationality. If you make a little chart, they're going in opposite directions. As emotion goes up, our rationality goes down. And the way you were describing it, we can become overcome by various emotions triggered by the mind, then the body becomes absorbed in it and so forth. And the exercise we're talking about is being aware even of the emotions being triggered in us and being able to notice that. It's part of what people do in anger management, because oftentimes people are prone to anger, and then they're taught a little bit how to step back from it, make a little space between what happens to them and the reaction that they offer because of it. And you can notice how the emotions control the body and so forth. So that description of how you were able to do that was very interesting and encouraging. Thank you very much, Miriam. Go ahead, JM.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah. Mind just posted, reflecting on godlike power of the mind is fearsome. When the mind is fixated on something, it seems almost impossible to control it.
Yeah. So this is described in the Bhagavad Gita. In fact, there's teacher and student. It's a dialogue. And in the chapter on meditation, when the teacher recommends meditation, the student Arjuna says, but this seems impossible, because when the mind is, well, first he describes the mind is, he gives three qualities. He says the mind is mad, as in crazy. It's very determined. Actually, it's very strong also. And it's also fickle. And if you met a person who embodied all those qualities, you might be likely be disturbed by it. And so, yeah, no, I got so absorbed in that I had forgotten what the main point was. Oh, yeah, the fearsome mind, right? Almost impossible to control it, right? So what Krishna responds is, it's possible by practice and by detachment. He mentions those two things. So we did a little practice. We also saw what it was like to detach a little bit. So like anything else, takes practice. We're not at the mercy of the mind necessarily, unless we just let it rule us. And you only get one mind. So it's a good idea to take care of it and try to tame it. Go ahead, JM. I see there's more.
Yeah. Linda says, sometimes my anxiety gets so high that I actually become paralyzed and I cannot function at all. Do you have any insight as to how to turn this around when it happens? It usually happens when I have multiple tasks to do, and the last thing I need is to be stuck.
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to pass on some wisdom I got from my mother, actually. So when I was when I was younger, I joined a monastery because I was really drawn to it. I was 16 at the time, and I had lived a monastic life for several years, and I happened to be passing through an airport, and I was a little bit of anxiety, and my mind was stuck. I was kind of depressed. So what do you do when that happens? Call your mom. So I called my mother. This is how long ago it was. It was from a payphone. So I was on a payphone and I called my mother, and before I even told her how I was feeling, she detected it in my voice, said, "So, well, how are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm not very good. I feel discouraged." And she said words that resonated in my mind, because I had visited home a couple times and she saw my practice. And one of the practices was that I did mantra meditation. And to count my mantras, I used a string of beads, and I keep it in a bag. I think I have it right here. Like, this is the bag. And inside it are these mantra beads where you chant. I mean, practically every culture has these. So she would see me doing my practice daily. And so over the phone, she said, "You listen to me. You take your hand, you put it in that bag, and you start chanting." And later on, I didn't even know why she said that. See, I asked her years later, decades later, "Why did you tell me that?" She said, "I knew it was the only way, to bring you back into the spiritual consciousness." Like, well, how did you know that? So we had an interesting conversation about that. But it's actually the cure. And this is what the Vedas describe as transcendental sound vibration. When you feel stuck, it's like if maybe you drop something on a clean cloth and you get it stained, and it stains. So what do? You got to get a solvent. Someone showed me the other day, there's this soap called Dawn, DAWN, and what's that antiseptic stuff that comes in a brown bottle that is fizzy? It's called
Is it Dettol? No.
not Dettol. It's like a
Peroxide?
Yeah, hydrogen peroxide. Thanks, Polly. So this person was showing a demonstration. If you mix Dawn and hydrogen peroxide and use a little brush and you put it on the stain, comes right out. Didn't know that. So the sound vibration, the mantra is like that. You're stuck, right? Your mind's stuck. There's a stain. You can't get it out. I can't move. I can't do it. Listen to my mom's advice. At least I will. And, start the transcendental vibration. Do at least that much and let the solvent dissolve the problem. You have to have something you can resort to that's not intellectual, because you're already stuck on that level. So you have to have something that's called transcendental. It's above the mind. So that's why mantra meditation, the word man means mind, and tra means to deliver. It's a stain remover. So when the mind's stuck, take the mantra. And so a lot of people do it preemptively. They just start their day by practicing mantra meditation because they know, I'm going to get stuck somewhere along the line. So I might as well get myself above the mind before I even venture out into the world. I hope that helped. Okay. What else, Jim?
Sundar put down the verse you are referring to. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind.
Yeah. And then he answers, you can do it with practice and by detachment. So it's worth the effort, because it's really the whole way we interact with the world. It has to do with the state of our mind. We don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way our mind is. That was a statement by a Greek philosopher named Epictetus. And is that true now as it was back then? Which was in ancient times, by the way.
And Sundar, thanks. She loves the point about strain remover through transcendental agent, which is about the mind.
Get your stain remover out. Well, nice reflections, everybody. We're keeping the transcendental vibration going here and the conversation. So let's show a few more slides to load everybody up with more realizations that you can reflect back. Okay, this is another one from the Srimad Bhagavatam talking about the mind, and I'll read it for you. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. So the first sentence is about the way in which we dream, and here a rather gruesome image. You see your own head being cut off in the dream, and then you suffer. Oh no, my head was cut off. But if you were reasonably aware and not dreaming, you'd notice that actually I can't observe my own head being cut off. The optic nerve would have been severed and so forth, or I couldn't observe anyway that my head was cut off. And the other one is a very famous analogy about if you see the moon in a pot of water, if you tap the pot and the water trembles, then it looks like the moon's trembling, but it's not. So in a similar way, we might notice, sometimes our people are affected by hallucinogen. They may be sitting on a couch somewhere and then they're noticing that the carpet is melting, turning into water or something like that, or the whole room is moving. But actually we can see they're just sitting there. But it's all taking place through the lens of the mind. So this is one of the ways that the yoga literatures point to or give analogies to how the mind is affecting us. Okay, I'd mentioned this one before, but I like this slide because there's always these two sides the mind can go to. Is it our enemy or our friend? Is it giving us good, helpful advice, or is it telling us to do things that are destructive? So it's possible to befriend the mind. I think I've said that several times now, but it's worth repeating, because what would it be like if the mind was my friend and not pulling the alarm? That used to happen in school. Kids to get out of school, they'd pull the fire alarm and then the alarm would go up. And we have false alarm. So the mind does that a lot too. False alarm here, there, and everywhere. And it keeps us in this state of emergency, practically, that what might happen. So when the mind's friendly, we're actually able to observe what is my circle of influence. What can I really do something about? And not simply fret and feel anxious, but I can be here in the moment and I can be absorbed in something that's actually useful. I mean, that's one aspect of the mind being friendly. Hey, there's a little driver in that guy's head. So that's nice. You see that, everybody? Sort of driving us in a certain way. If that person's intoxicated or just in anxiety, it's going to be a wild ride. Okay, I'm ready. Our minds are like factories. So I mentioned this. This comes from a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that says, Prajahati yada kaman sarvam partha manogatan. So mano means the mind. Same word in English as in Sanskrit. So prajahati means to be able to pull back from it. And when the mind is churning, it's creating all these products in the form of, I want this, I want that. Or this might happen, that might happen, and I'm worried. Or I'm lamenting about the past, that I wish this didn't happen. I wish that hadn't happened. If it hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am right now. So that's constant and it's a factory. It's a well-oiled factory, and it's producing these products constantly. So when one is able to practice pulling back from those products, which are not healthy, Rajahati Adakaman Sarvan Partamanogatan, that person is able then to have a clearer vision of his or her own self beyond the mind. So it says Atman Yevatmana Tushta. And Tushta means, everyone try saying it, it's a nice word, Tushta. It means satisfaction. You can actually feel satisfaction in just being you. What you are is more important than what you have. And we're not the sum total of all the experiences that we are having in our life. We're beyond that. We're transcendental to that. And we can experience that. And when we do, then there's a sense of satisfaction that you don't get from just interacting with material things in the world. Okay. This is another alert. I'm going to call for reflections in about 1 minute and 32 seconds. So look, this word called manudharma, everyone's heard of dharma, right? So dharma is translated in various ways. It comes from a root word in Sanskrit, dhr, which means to sustain, whatever sustains us. And sometimes it's translated as religion and duty and so forth. But in a poem I found talking about manodharma, and as you remember, mano means the mind. So manodharma means the religion of the mind. It means the mind has its own religion. And it's always dictating, do this, do that, don't do that. It's like, well, where are you getting all this from? The mind's getting it from various places, and then it extrapolates, it concocts, and so forth. The concoctions of the mind. You see a pile of gold, and then you see a mountain, and you think of a golden mountain. It does that all the time. So is that your religion? The religion of the mind? Or can you be directed in a higher way beyond just the concoctions of the mind? Okay, I gave a warning. That was 1 minute and 32 seconds. So I should have a bell that I ring or something. Now it's time for reflections or questions.
Yes, Sonali has something. Please go ahead.
Oh, that's nice.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. So whatever slides you were showing, I was thinking about it, that like how when you say fearsome, godlike, so it was really fearful. I mean, it's like knowing your enemy, that like it's very, very strong. And all these slides that you were showing, and I was thinking about it, that mind not only troubles you or manipulate you, but it also changes the environment around you. I mean, that's what I'm experiencing, that if you are in a mood of criticizing, then everyone around you come and they add fuel to it. So you attract that energy towards you. So you are in a negative mood, then you attract all the negativity. And if you are in a positive, so I felt like while I was, going through all the slides, that how it is important to control mind and keep it like that manodharma, keep him like religious and attached to the Krishna and positive. So thank you so much for that.
Okay. Thanks, Sonali. Fantastic. Just the point about the mind giving misinformation, that's what enemy forces do. They'll set up some kind of broadcast system near your town where they're trying to conquer, and they send in misinformation through the airwaves. And then that confuses the enemy, and then it's easier to conquer. So the mind, when it's an enemy, it's like Morse code coming in, all kinds of things like that are not true. It's all misinformation, and then we become disturbed by it. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Wisam.
So following, may I add?
Yes.
So when you are saying that it is a enemy is trying to, so this is, I had this impression that like if you are in a negative mood, negativity you are attracting. So it's not true, but then you feel that it is a negativity. Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
that would be one of the concoctions of the mind. You can misinterpret what's actually going along, because that's what perspective is. It means to selectively pick up certain things. And if the lens is warped, like once I was sleeping on an airplane, I got up and I used their restroom, and I looked in the mirror and my head was lopsided. And I said, oh my God, now I'm a monster. My head's lopsided. I must have slept on it wrong. And then I moved my head 1 inch to the right, and I realized, oh, that it's in the mirror. It's not in my head. And in the same way, when the mind is warped, we see the world is warped, and then it responds. People respond to us like, what? Yeah. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
Wisam.
I mean, earlier in this workshop, we said that God, I mean, mind is the God. It became a consequence that it has its own religion. I mean, I should have seen it. Yeah, that's
Bravo. Way to go, Wisam. Nice. Yeah. Okay, Sundar has some, there's more in there. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So Linda says, I loved your story about your mom, Paish, as my little Italian mom always tells me to pray the rosary when I'm stuck. I guess the rosary is the Catholic chant.
Yeah. Yeah. The rosary string of beads, and there's mantra that you use also. Definitely.
And there's one more person who said, love the factory manufacturing analogy. I don't know the name, but they like the factory manufacturing.
It's Subhadra in Nuuanu Valley. Nuuanu Valley is where she is. It's in Hawaii. Okay, and then Sundar said, how do you stop identifying with the mind or the thoughts, stories in the mind? Well, we did it temporarily when we did our meditation, right? Because if you're able to just stop for a moment and become a witness, you can notice for yourself at any time. We can do that. We can step back and we can notice that the mind is churning. And the problem is that I often don't do that. I just accept whatever misinformation it's giving me. I buy into it. I panic. My body then becomes stressed. And that feeds the idea, there's some rash because I'm so stressed. And there's like, yeah, you're really stressed. It's like, it's a horrible condition of life you're in. It's like, where's that horrible condition of life coming from? The mind. It's concocting that idea. So when we're able to live in the eye of the storm, we're not affected by the movements of the mind. And it's one of the main points that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, learn to be dhira. Dhira means to tolerate the changes that are going on around you. And that starts with observing that I'm okay. There's a mantra I picked up a long time ago in English. Of course, it says, things are never as good as they seem or as bad as they seem. They're all the time, especially when I'm in management and everyone's bringing me problems like this, that. And then I realized that most of the time, the kind of anxiety people are in is unwarranted. They don't have enough information yet, and things even out anyway over time. So Krishna says, learn to not overreact to these types of things, and you'll start to get wisdom from that. There's a fruit from tolerating things and not overreacting, because then you'll see, oh, actually, it wasn't what I thought it was. And that starts to become the norm and the way we look at things. And the other way, of course, mantra. Mantra is a very powerful way to rise above the mind. As I mentioned before, man means mind and tra means to rise above or to deliver. So if you have that hook, in fact, the word mantra has that R in it. And I always think of it as a little hook. Like, you can grab the mind with that hook and just lift it above the fray with the mantra. Definitely works. I mean, yesterday I was at a meditation circle. Was it yesterday? Yeah, Thursday. Today's Friday. Okay. So yeah, there was an early morning meditation circle, and we sat there for a long time doing mantra as the light hadn't come up yet. The sun came up, and it's an uncanny feeling to just, after such a session, you move about the world in a completely different way. You observe in a different way. You feel different. So that's a mainstay of a spiritual practice, to have a way to rise above the mind on a daily basis. Otherwise, we get creamed. There's just no way around it. The mind's too powerful unless we have a strategy. Uh-oh, everyone's dropping off because I just kept going. All right, JM, thank you for keeping the lights on and for inviting us all into this space. Don't think we don't appreciate it. Thanks everybody who joined us from various places. Either give an emoji or say hey before you go. We need human interaction on here. And by the way, speaking of human interaction, I spend a couple months in India every year. And whenever I swing through the Himalayas, I notice that the yogis, they meditate in caves up there. Every once in a while, they come out. And by chance, when they see their colleagues who are also meditators coming out of their caves, they have this very joyful way of greeting one another. They hold their arms high in the air, palms straight forward, and they have this phrase, Hari Bol. And it means, keep the transcendental vibration going. Hari Bol. Thanks, everybody.
Haribol. Haribol.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Thank you.